All right, everyone get ready, because today we are going deep on the Atari 2600.
The Atari 2600.
Yeah. You ready for some serious nostalgia?
Oh, absolutely.
So we're talking gaming in like its most raw form. Before fancy graphics, before
Okay.
online multiplayer. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
Back when it was one console, one game forever.
Yeah, like those dedicated consoles, they call them.
Right.
And
But then the Atari 2600 comes along and just blows that whole idea out of the water.
completely, yeah, with those swappable cartridges,
Yeah.
really was a game changer.
For sure. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Plus a bunch more really interesting insights we got from some articles in both English and German.
Oh, wow.
And a super cool historical piece from the IE Spectrum.
Nice.
Yeah. So our mission today is to go beyond just, like the basic facts about the Atari.
Right.
And really understand like why it was such a big deal, how it shaped the whole gaming world,
Yeah.
and how it managed to survive against all odds.
It's a story of innovation and resilience for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So let's think back,
Okay.
to 1977,
Right. 1977.
when dedicated consoles were king.
Yeah. They ruled the living room.
Right, and then boom.
The Fairchild Channel F
Yeah.
comes out of nowhere, it seems like.
Yeah.
And they pioneer this whole idea of these swappable game cartridges.
Yeah.
Which is just mind-blowing at the time.
Total game changer, right.
Oh, yeah.
And Atari being, Atari,
Yeah.
they are not going to be left behind.
Yeah.
It's like, no way. So they launched the VCS, later renamed the Atari 2600.
Right.
And their bet was pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
Give people more choices and do it at a price they can actually afford.
Affordability, flexibility, done.
Yeah.
Pure genius.
Genius, right.
Yeah.
But let's look under the hood for a second.
Right, let's crack it open.
Okay, so we've got a computer here running on a 1.18 megahertz processor.
With a whopping 128 bytes of RAM.
128 bytes of RAM.
That's it.
Okay, so to put that into perspective,
Yep.
your smartphone has millions of times more memory than that.
Millions. Literally millions.
I know, it's mind-blowing.
It is. It's incredible.
It's like comparing like a toy car to like a spaceship.
Right?
But that's part of what makes the Atari 2600 so brilliant.
Absolutely.
Is that they were able to do so much with so little.
It really forced the developers to think differently.
Oh, yeah.
To be incredibly creative
And
and resourceful with what they had.
Yeah. And they had to squeeze every little bit of performance out of that hardware.
Absolutely. Every ounce.
So let's talk about that hardware for a second.
Okay.
Okay. So we've got the MOS Technology 6507 CPU.
The 6507.
Yeah, it was a good CPU at the time.
It was powerful for its time.
Yeah.
And it was cheap, which was important.
Super important.
But it had its quirks.
Oh, for sure.
And those quirks really forced programmers to get creative.
Yeah. It's like trying to write a novel on a typewriter with like only 5 keys.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
That's great.
You got to get resourceful.
You got to get really creative to make that work.
And that's what gave those Atari games their flavor.
It did. It absolutely did.
Yeah.
And, of course, we can't forget the Stella chip.
The Stella chip.
Named after a bicycle.
Of all things.
Of all things, a bicycle.
Yeah.
But this little chip was a marvel.
Yeah.
It handled all the graphics and the output to those old school TVs.
I mean, you think about those graphics now, and they're so fuzzy and colorful.
Yeah.
And I think they're kind of charming in their own way.
Yeah, they have a certain charm to them.
Yeah. Especially compared to what we have today.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The hyper-realistic graphics.
Yeah. But, it's more than just nostalgia.
It is.
That simplicity forced those developers to get really inventive.
Oh, yeah.
With how they use those limited resources to make those games.
Exactly. And speaking of charm,
Yeah.
the early Atari models,
Yeah.
they even had wood grain finishes.
I know.
Remember the heavy sixers and the light sixers?
Oh, yeah.
They were designed to blend right into people's living rooms.
I know. Like, can you imagine a console trying to blend in with your furniture today?
I can't even fathom it.
It's hilarious.
It is.
It's so funny. And then 1980 rolls around.
Yeah.
And we get the Vader model.
The sleek black Vader model.
The sleek black, yeah.
Yeah.
Signaling this like total shift in design philosophy.
Yeah, like the console was evolving with the times.
Yeah.
And then, you know what?
What?
Even Sears jumped on board.
Sears?
Sears wanted in on the action.
No way.
Rebranded it the Sears Video Arcade.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Everyone wanted a piece of that Atari pie.
Okay, but let's get back to the real magic here.
Okay.
The programming.
Yeah.
These developers working with such limited hardware,
Like
it's unbelievable what they were able to accomplish.
It really is. It's mind-blowing when you think about it.
It is.
They had to create these games that were fun,
Right.
engaging all with these tiny amounts of memory
Yeah.
and this processor that's like, a snail by today's standards.
Yeah, so how did they pull it off?
That is the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, they invented some truly ingenious techniques
Yeah.
to make it happen.
Like what?
One of the most famous was racing the beam.
Gracing the beam, okay.
Yeah, basically, programmers had to synchronize their code perfectly with the electron gun inside the TV.
The electron gun.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're pushing the hardware to do things it was never really designed to do.
Wait, so they're like manipulating the way the TV is drawing the image on the screen?
Exactly.
Wow.
It's pretty amazing.
That is amazing.
Like imagine you're trying to paint a picture, but you can only apply one brush stroke at a time,
Oh, okay.
and then you have to wait for the canvas to dry between each stroke.
Oh, wow.
That's kind of what these Atari developers were dealing with.
That's wild.
It is pretty wild.
But it also shows just how incredibly skilled these programmers were.
They had to be.
And how ingenious they were.
Absolutely.
I mean, they had to understand the hardware so deeply to make these tricks work.
Deeply and intimately. And what's interesting is that mindset is still relevant in game development today.
Really?
Even with all the powerful tools and technology we have.
Yeah.
Sometimes the most elegant solutions,
Yeah.
they come from understanding the limitations of your tools
Oh, wow.
and working creatively within those constraints.
I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got racing the beam. That's one crazy technique.
That's a good one.
I know they had to have more tricks up their sleeves, though.
Oh, they had a whole bag of tricks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. We've only just scratched the surface here.
Yeah. Okay, give me another one. All right, so another one was this thing called the polynomial counter.
The polynomial counter.
Yeah, it's a little technical, but basically it was a way for them to save memory
Okay.
by cleverly calculating the position of objects on the screen.
So instead of like directly storing, like the coordinates of every object,
Exactly.
they were using like this formula to figure out where things should be.
Yeah.
Exactly. It was kind of like solving this little puzzle every time you wanted to move something on the screen.
Oh, wow.
And, this seemingly simple trick had a huge impact on the look and feel of Atari games.
Oh, wow. Okay, so we got racing the beam, we got the polynomial counter, and they were all about like pushing that hardware to its limits.
Yeah, pushing it to the absolute edge.
Okay, but what about those games that had like tons of stuff happening on screen?
Yeah.
Like, how did they manage to fit all those aliens and Space Invaders?
Space Invaders. Well, that's where rewriting on the fly comes in.
Rewriting on the fly.
Yeah.
Okay.
So remember how we talked about the TV drawing the image line by line?
Uh-huh.
Well, the developers, they figured out that they could actually change the appearance of objects mid-scan line.
Wait, so they're changing things while the TV is in the middle of drawing the image?
Exactly. It's pretty wild.
That's insane.
It is pretty insane.
Like, how is that even possible?
Well, imagine if you could, like change the design of each playing card in a game of blackjack. Or like alter the appearance of those Space Invaders as they're marching across the screen. All in like a fraction of a second.
It's like a magic trick.
It really is like a magic trick happening right there on your TV screen.
That's incredible. And so it wasn't just about creating variety.
Right.
This actually helped them, like, cram more detail into those little sprites.
Absolutely.
Wow.
But sometimes even that wasn't enough.
Really?
Oh, yeah. So to squeeze even more objects on screen, they would use a technique called flicker.
Okay, flicker.
Yeah.
That sounds kind of ominous.
It could be. It could be a little jarring to the eyes.
Yeah.
But basically what they were doing was rapidly switching objects on and off
Okay.
to make it look like there were more of them than the hardware could actually handle.
So like a visual illusion, kind of.
Exactly. A visual illusion, although it was a bit controversial.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Some developers thought it was too distracting,
Yeah, I could see that.
while others, they embraced it to create some really spectacular effects.
Oh.
It's interesting to note, though, that Activision,
Yeah.
which was a major game developer at the time,
Right.
they decided to avoid flicker altogether.
I wonder why.
Yeah. Who knows what their reasoning was, but they just said no to flicker.
Wow. Okay, so flicker, rewriting on the fly.
Yep.
But speaking of games with a lot going on,
Yes.
how did they manage to, like, fit all the pieces on the screen for a game like chess?
Ah, chess. Well, for that, we have Venetian blinds to thank.
Venetian blinds? What?
Yeah, this is another one of their ingenious tricks,
Okay.
where they would strategically display different parts of objects
Right.
on alternating scan lines.
Okay.
So essentially they were doubling the number of things they could show on the screen.
So like they're interlacing the chess pieces like an old TV signal?
You got it. That's a great way to think about it.
Wow.
And this technique wasn't just limited to chess.
Oh, really?
No, it popped up in other games for all sorts of clever effects.
That's amazing. Okay, so we've talked about the programming tricks, but the Atari 2600's success? Yeah.
It wasn't always a sure thing.
No, it wasn't.
In fact, the console actually struggled for a while.
Yeah, it did. It really struggled to find its audience early on.
Really?
But then along came a game that would change everything.
Okay.
A game that was perfectly suited to the Atari 2600's unique strengths.
You're talking about Space Invaders.
Space Invaders, that's the one.
The game that, like, became synonymous with the Atari.
Oh, yeah, they were like peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah, it was a match made in gaming heaven.
It was a perfect pairing.
Yeah, like rows of descending aliens.
Uh-huh.
Simple but addictive gameplay.
You just couldn't stop playing.
Yeah, it's like Space Invaders was destined for the 2600.
I think it was.
And it wasn't just a great game.
Right.
It also, like, perfectly showcased what the 2600 could do.
Absolutely.
Those simple graphics, this smooth movement of the aliens.
Yeah.
It was a perfect demonstration of the console's technical capabilities.
It was a showcase.
Yeah.
It really showed off what the 2600 could do.
And sales just exploded. Oh, yeah, they went through the roof.
Solidifying Atari's dominance in the home console market.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, talk about the power of having the right game at the right time.
It's amazing what a single game can do.
It is. It really is. But the Atari's journey wasn't without its, like, bumps in the road.
Oh, no, of course not.
Right.
Every good story has some bumps.
Yeah, they had, like, production challenges. And, some people say they made a couple of missteps along the way.
Yeah, a few missteps.
Yeah, like one of the biggest what-ifs in gaming history revolves around the Atari's memory expansion capabilities.
Yeah.
So if they had gone with a 30-pin connector instead of the 24-pin one, the console could have potentially supported way more memory.
A lot more memory. Can you imagine?
Really?
Yeah.
So like a different connector could have changed the entire trajectory of the Atari?
It's possible.
Wow.
More memory could have opened up so many possibilities for game developers.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we might have seen even more ambitious and complex games.
Like, it's a butterfly effect moment for gaming history.
It really is. It's fascinating to think about.
But, even with those challenges and, like, the rising tide of competition, the Atari proved to be incredibly resilient.
It did. It really did.
Yeah.
And then came the ColecoVision.
The ColecoVision.
With its superior graphics.
Yeah.
And its partnership with this little company called Nintendo.
Oh, it was the Nintendo.
Yeah.
Oh. So the ColecoVision was like a real threat.
It was a real threat.
Yeah.
It was a glimpse into the future of console gaming.
Yeah.
Features and capabilities that really just blew the Atari out of the water.
Wow. But despite all of that, the Atari didn't just fade away.
No, it didn't.
I'm telling.
It defied the odds.
Even after the video game crash of '83.
I know, it's amazing, isn't it?
The little console that could.
I love that.
So how do you think it managed to survive when so many others didn't?
Well, I think a few factors played a role.
Oh, okay.
First, the Atari had built up this massive library of games over the years.
Right.
So players had just an incredible amount of choice.
So variety is key.
Variety is absolutely key.
Okay, what else?
Well, I think the price played a big role, too.
Yeah.
As newer consoles emerged, the Atari became more and more affordable.
Right.
Making it a great entry point for budget-conscious gamers.
Yeah, it's a classic example of how a product can find, like, new life at a different price point.
Absolutely.
But it's more than just affordability in game selection.
It is.
Like, the Atari had a certain magic to it.
It did. It had a charm that resonated with people.
Yeah. Those blocky graphics, those simple sand effects.
I know.
Like, they evoke this sense of nostalgia.
Yeah.
This longing for a simpler time in gaming.
I know exactly what you mean.
And let's not forget the impact those games had on pop culture.
Yeah.
I mean, Pac-Man, Pitfall, Missile Command.
Oh, yeah.
These weren't just pixels on a screen.
They were cultural phenomena.
Well, yeah, they were cultural touchstones.
Exactly.
Shared experiences that brought people together. It's amazing how a console with such technical limitations could inspire so much creativity and have such a profound impact on culture.
It really speaks to the power of imagination.
Yeah.
And the enduring appeal of just simple, fun gameplay.
Yeah, for sure. But the Atari wasn't just a flash in the pan, right?
No.
It had a lasting impact on the gaming industry as a whole.
Well, absolutely. A lasting impact.
So what are some of those things?
Well, the concept of cartridges.
Okay.
The familiar joystick design.
Yeah.
The whole idea of pushing hardware limits with clever programming.
Yeah.
These are all legacies of the Atari 2600.
It's like the DNA of the Atari is woven into the fabric of modern gaming.
It is.
And it's not just about the technology either.
No.
Like, the Atari helped establish video games as a mainstream form of entertainment.
Absolutely.
Brought gaming into the living room.
Yeah.
Made it accessible to, like, a way wider audience.
And paved the way for the incredible variety and sophistication we see in games today.
I know. It's crazy to think about.
It is. It really is.
Like, we have this multi-billion-dollar industry now.
I know. It's mind-blowing.
And it all started with humble beginnings, like the Atari.
The Atari 2600. A little console that could.
I love that.
Yeah. But, even though the Atari might seem primitive by today's standards,
right?
There's something so compelling about its simplicity.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. Like, there's a certain purity to it.
There is. Yeah. This focus on just pure, unadulterated fun.
Yeah, and I think that's something we can all learn from.
Absolutely.
Even in today's world of, high-definition graphics,
yeah.
These complex gameplay systems.
Yeah, sometimes the most engaging experiences, they come from the simplest ideas.
Yeah.
The ones that tap into our primal desire to just play and explore.
Okay, so as we kind of wrap up our look at the Atari here, what can we take away from all of this?
That's a good question.
Like, what are the key lessons that the Atari has to teach us?
About gaming, about technology, and maybe even about life itself. I think one of the biggest lessons is that limitations can actually breed creativity.
Oh, yeah.
Like the Atari developers had to work with so little.
Yeah.
And yet they created some of the most iconic and enduring games of all time.
I know it's a testament to their ingenuity.
Yeah.
Their ability to think outside the box.
Yeah, and they had to find workarounds for every obstacle they encountered.
They did, for everything.
And those workarounds led to, like, innovative solutions that really influenced game development for years to come.
Oh, absolutely. They really pushed the boundary.
It's like they turned constraints into opportunities.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, like, what limitations are driving innovation today?
Right.
What are we doing now that people will look back on in 20, 30 years and be like, how did they do that with such limited technology?
I know. It's fascinating.
It is. It's a fascinating question.
Yeah.
Another big takeaway, I think, is the importance of timing.
Oh, yeah. Timing is everything.
The Atari came along at just the right moment.
It did.
It captured the imagination of a generation that was, like, hungry for home entertainment.
They were ready for it.
And then Space Invaders hits the scene.
And takes the world by storm.
It was like a perfect storm of innovation.
Yeah.
Marketing savvy and just plain fun.
Absolutely. It was the right game at the right time.
Yeah, the right game at the right time.
Yep.
It's a classic example of synergy, like everything just coming together at the right time to create something truly special.
Magical.
Yeah, and it reminds us that even the most, like, groundbreaking ideas, they need the right environment to flourish.
The right place at the right time.
Yeah, but the Atari also reminds us that nothing lasts forever.
That's true.
Like, technology evolves, tastes change. What was once cutting edge eventually becomes like a relic of the past.
It's the circle of life in technology.
Right. But even though the Atari's time in the spotlight faded, its legacy continues to inspire.
It does. It really does.
You know what blows my mind?
What?
There's still a vibrant community of people out there.
I know.
Making new games for the Atari.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Like 40 plus years later.
Yeah.
They are still making new games for this console.
I know. Isn't that cool?
It's incredible. Talk about dedication.
Talk about passion.
Yeah. And they're not just rehashing old ideas either.
No, they're pushing the boundaries.
They're pushing the boundaries of what's possible on this, like, 40-year-old hardware. Exploring new genres, experimenting with different visual styles.
Oh, they're getting really creative.
Even incorporating, like, modern gameplay mechanics.
It's incredible what they're doing.
So it's not just about nostalgia.
No.
Like, these people are genuinely innovating within the constraints of this classic console.
That's right.
It's really cool. And if you're interested in checking out, like, this retro revival, there's an amazing website called Atari Age.
Atari Age.
AtariAge.com. It's a fantastic resource for anyone who's interested in the Atari.
Yeah.
You can find, like, its history, technical details, and this whole thriving community of developers and fans that are keeping its spirit alive.
Keeping the dream alive.
You might even be inspired to create your own Atari masterpiece.
Who knows, right?
So, as we wrap up our deep dive on the Atari 2600, I'm left with this thought,
Yeah.
if those designers had made different choices, like that 30-pin connector we talked about,
Right.
how would gaming history have unfolded?
It's a mind-boggling what if.
It really is.
Yeah.
It makes you appreciate the interconnectedness of these seemingly small decisions and their impact on, like the grand tapestry of technological evolution.
Absolutely. And it's a reminder that the path of innovation is rarely straightforward.
Yeah.
It's full of twists and turns and unexpected consequences.
For sure. And, as we continue to push the boundaries of technology, it's worth remembering the lessons of the Atari 2600. Embrace limitations, celebrate creativity, and never underestimate the power of a simple, well-executed idea.
The Atari 2600 taught us that.
It really did well. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Atari 2600.
It was a pleasure.
Catch you next time.